"You're a disgrace," my mother shouted. Simply because I refused the man she had chosen for me, she slapped me and threw me out. I said nothing. 11 years later, they watched me step off a private jet holding their granddaughter, and they were speechless. 11 years earlier, my mother had called me a disgrace, struck me, and forced me out of our home, all because I would not marry the man she'd arranged. Tonight, I returned to that same hometown by private jet with my 5-year-old daughter, Emma, at my side. The look on my parents' faces as we stepped from the car was unforgettable. Growing up in the Turner household felt like living under constant scrutiny. My parents, Margaret and Robert Turner, were more than conservative. They controlled nearly every aspect of my life. Our Pennsylvania house looked picture perfect from the outside. Trimmed lawns, white windows. Inside it was different. My mother, Margaret, ran the home with strict standards and an obsession with social standing. My father, Robert, a quiet accountant, rarely intervened. When he did, it was with a sheepish glance in my direction, after one of my mother's harsher critiques. "A proper young lady doesn't question her mother," she would say whenever I showed any independence. By 15, those confrontations were routine, wanting to join the debate team instead of cotillion, taking a part-time job at a bookstore instead of volunteering at the country club, or wearing jeans instead of the floral dresses she selected. "You're embarrassing the family," she'd snap, keeping her perfect smile. Our dining room became the setting for daily lectures, about posture, grades that were never quite good enough, and how my attitude would ruin my chances at a quality husband. My father often stared at his plate, and when he did speak, it was usually, "Listen to your mother, Samantha." His passivity stung more than the criticism. By senior year, conversation about my future husband was constant. My mother had cultivated a relationship with the Wilsons, a new family in town. Their son, Marcus, was 33. I was 18, newly divorced, and considered by my mother to be an ideal match for him. Marcus had the pedigree and connections my mother wanted. "You should be flattered," she told me, after their visits. "He's shown interest in you." What my mother called interest felt disturbing to me. Marcus's gaze lingered too long. His compliments about my appearance came with a coldness in his eyes. When he brushed against me or put a hand on my back, I felt uneasy. Meanwhile, I had my own plans. I wanted to study business and marketing. I researched colleges at night and hid brochures under my mattress. When application season arrived, I submitted 7 applications without my parents' knowledge, paying fees with money I'd saved babysitting. A Tuesday brought an acceptance letter from UC Berkeley. I hid it in my desk, thrilled and terrified. That same evening, my mother announced the Wilsons would join us for dinner that weekend. For a very special occasion, her look with my father chilled me. "We have such wonderful news," she told me, patting my hand. "You'll finally see why I've been strict. Everything has been to prepare you." Over the week, she was unusually kind, picking my outfit, scheduling a salon appointment, which only amplified my worry. The acceptance letter burned quietly in my drawer. Everything I wanted, versus the life being planned for me without consent. The night before dinner, I overheard my parents whispering. "She's too young," my father said. "Nonsense," my mother replied. "She was 19 when we married. Besides, the Wilsons are offering a generous arrangement. This will secure her future and help with your partnership track at the firm. Everyone wins." I stepped back, heart pounding. They weren't just arranging a marriage, they were negotiating a deal. I was the commodity. On Saturday, the dining room shone under the chandelier, crystal, china, polished silver. I sat rigid in a navy dress, hands folded to hide my shaking. The Wilsons arrived on time. Marcus followed his parents with a smug confidence that made me uneasy. He was attractive in a business magazine way, dark hair, tall, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. He placed a small velvet box by his water glass, gave me a wink that made me shiver, and kissed my cheek, lingering. Conversation moved slowly, dominated by business talk and references to a joined future that made the food taste like ash. My mother beamed. My father glanced at me with what looked like regret. After dessert, Mr. Wilson rose. "We should get to the real purpose of this evening." Marcus moved to my side and dropped to one knee beside my chair. "Samantha Turner, he said, opening the box to reveal an oversized diamond. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Silence pressed in. Everyone looked to me. My mother was almost ecstatic. My father resigned. The Wilsons confident. Marcus's expression was not affectionate, it was transactional. I need some air, I said, standing. Excuse me. I went to the back porch for fresh air. Marcus followed. Annoyed. That wasn't the response I expected, he said, arms crossed. This is sudden, I answered. We barely know each other. He laughed without warmth. Don't be naive. This has been in the works for months. Your mother assured me you were on board. Arrangement? I asked, stunned. Yes. My father helps your father make partner. Your mother gains stand. I get a young, beautiful wife who will bear children and host events. He reached to touch my face. You'll have a comfortable life. Many women would be grateful. I stepped back. And if I want a career, an education, a say in my future? I asked. His face hardened. My wife won't need to work. Education, perhaps a few cooking classes. He gestured to the ring. I am your future. In that moment everything became clear. Accepting meant becoming decorative and managed, trading my dreams for his convenience. No, I said. The word felt like release. Marcus flushed with anger. You'll regret this, he hissed, then stormed back inside. I took a moment, then re-entered the dining room. The mood had shifted. The Wilsons gathered their coats. Mrs. Wilson whispered angrily to my mother. Mr. Wilson glared. My father hovered near the doorway, avoiding my eyes. When the guests left, my mother confronted me. What have you done? She demanded. Do you know what you've thrown away? I answered with an odd calm. I've saved myself from a lifetime of misery. I won't marry a man who treats me like property. Property? She scoffed. Marcus Wilson is one of the most eligible bachelors in the state. He would have given you security and status, everything I prepared you for. I don't want those things if they cost my freedom, I said. Her face twisted with fury. This is about those college applications, isn't it? Did you think I wouldn't find them? My heart sank. She had gone through my things. I want to study business, I said, standing straighter. I want to build my own life. You're a disgrace, she shouted, her composure cracking. After everything we've done, the Wilsons will never speak to us again. Your father's career is ruined because of your selfishness. I looked at my father for support. He looked at the floor. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said quietly, but I would not change my mind. My mother slapped me without warning. The sting brought tears. Get out, she whispered barely. If you're too good for the life we planned, leave and see how you do on your own. You're no daughter of mine. My father tried to protest weakly. She's just a teenager. My mother cut him off. She's made her choice. Now she can live with it. I packed quickly. A few clothes, my toothbrush, the Berkeley acceptance letter, and the small savings I had. My mother was gone. My father stood by the front door, pale. Dad, I pleaded. He pressed $300 into my hand. This is all I can do, he said. I'm sorry. Then he opened the door to the rainy night. I stepped out, the door closing behind me. I walked away from the one home I'd known, rain soaking my dress, my cheeks still stinging. Alone and wet, I called the only person I could. Audrey. She'd been my best friend since 5th grade. Unlike my other friends, Audrey's family was working class. My mother had always called her my charity project. Within 30 minutes, Audrey's worn Honda pulled up and I climbed in. Drip. I told Audrey everything. Her parents welcomed me and set up a mattress on the living room couch. Stay as long as you need, Mrs. Jackson said. Kindness foreign to my mother's coldness. 2 weeks became a month. I enrolled in community college, using my Berkeley letter as proof of graduation. Berkeley would have to wait. Tuition was impossible without family support. I worked at a coffee shop, added weekend grocery shifts and babysat evenings. My life became work, classes, and little sleep. My first apartment was a small studio, peeling wallpaper, roaches, a mattress on the floor, cold showers. I was exhausted and running on a shoestring. 3 months later, a scholarship rejection arrived. We regret to inform you, the letter said. That night, I nearly broke. I considered calling home, apologizing, and agreeing to their terms to escape the grind. My finger hovered over the number. Instead, I called Audrey. She talked me down. You've come too far to go back, she reminded me. Remember why you left. The next morning, I showed up at the coffee shop shaky and exhausted. I spilled a customer's drink and apologized while remaking it. The woman watched me with curiosity. When I told her I'd had a rough few months, she offered understanding. Her name was Ella Carson. She was a marketing director for a mid-size company. Ella returned in the following days and eventually handed me her business card. We have a junior position open, she said. No experience required, but we need someone smart who can think on their feet. Interested? That opportunity changed things. The entry-level job meant regular hours, benefits, and a pathway into marketing. I kept taking night classes in business and marketing. Ella became more than a boss. She was a mentor. She noticed my interest in campaigns and strategy. 6 months in, she implemented my social media ideas after I presented them. You have good instincts, she said. Keep developing them. My first promotion came after a week of staying late to rescue a project. The raise let me quit the grocery job and focus on studies. A second promotion 18 months later paid enough for a better apartment with hot water. There were still hard moments. A burst pipe that ruined textbooks, getting sick without paid sick leave, seeing classmates graduate from prestigious universities, while I stitched my education together class by class. But each challenge I overcame strengthened my confidence. The frightened 18-year-old who stood in the rain began to become someone else, capable, independent, solving problems and shaping her path. My mother's slap and my father's silence still hurt, but they no longer had the power to break me. 3 years after being expelled from home, I completed an associate degree. Elaine took me to dinner to celebrate and insisted on paying, despite my protests. My treat, she said. With an ulterior motive, she outlined a new position she'd created for me, with more responsibility and creative input. The salary figure in the offer letter made me choke on champagne. You've earned this, she said, sliding the official letter across the table. I have a feeling this is just the beginning for you, Samantha Turner. That night, looking at the offer on my small kitchen table, I allowed myself the thought that I wasn't just surviving. I was building. The future looked possible, rather than impossible. I had done it without returning to beg forgiveness for wanting control over my own life. Years and many late nights later, I stood in an auditorium in cap and gown to receive a bachelor's degree in business administration. I had completed the 4-year degree while working full-time, transferring community college credits, and taking night and weekend classes. The path took longer than most, but I finished debt-free and with real work experience. Elaine cheered from the audience. My parents' seats were empty. I hadn't invited them. Some wounds were still too deep. 2 weeks after graduation, Elaine called me into her office, closed the door, and told me she had been watching my growth. I've come to a difficult conclusion, she began. My stomach dropped, anticipating bad news. You've outgrown us. Your ideas are bigger than what we can implement here. You need to start your own company. I laughed, thinking she was joking. With what capital? I asked. Elaine slid a personal check across her desk. $50,000. Consider this seed money, she said, when I tried to refuse. You've earned it. Not a gift, an investment. I want 15% equity in whatever you build. With trembling hands, I accepted the check and the challenge. I leased a tiny office that was almost a closet and officially registered Turner Marketing Consultants. My plan was to help small businesses with digital marketing, a space larger agencies often ignored because of tight budgets. The first 6 months were brutal. I took any client I could, worked 18-hour days, and handled everything from strategy to implementation to bookkeeping. 2 clients canceled, nearly sinking the business before it began. I learned hard lessons about contracts, cash flow, and managing expectations. The breakthrough came when a social media campaign I built for a struggling bakery boosted foot traffic threefold in 1 month. The owner was ecstatic and recommended me to other local businesses. Referrals multiplied and suddenly I had more leads than I could manage alone. I hired my first employee, Lisa, a recent graduate who reminded me of myself, then a second, then a third. By the end of year 2, Turner Marketing had moved into a proper office with 8 employees. I repaid Elaine's investment, and she retained her equity stake. During a pitch for what would be our largest client, I met Michael Reynolds. He owned a chain of sustainable home goods stores and wanted to expand nationally. Unlike many clients who focus only on metrics, Michael asked about my business philosophy and long-term vision. "I like how you think," he said after my presentation. "Marketing isn't just selling, it's building relationships with customers who share your values." We won the contract. Over the next months, I worked closely with Michael on the brand's expansion strategy. Our professional rapport gradually grew into something more: shared tastes for obscure documentaries, hiking, and heated debates about environmental policy and pizza dough. On our third dinner that wasn't about business, Michael asked if he could kiss me. The fact he asked, respecting my boundary, told me everything about his character. Our relationship developed thoughtfully. Michael celebrated my ambition instead of feeling threatened. When my company landed its first $1 million client, he surprised me with champagne and took me skydiving, something I'd said I wanted to try someday. "Life's too short to keep postponing the things that scare and excite you," he shouted as we fell, his hand tight in mine. 2 years in, I discovered I was pregnant. The timing was unplanned. We were opening a second office in Chicago, while Michael negotiated national expansion. The positive test felt like another unanticipated detour. When I showed him, he asked gently, "What are you thinking?" I admitted I was worried about becoming the kind of parent my mother had been, someone who forced plans on me. He hugged me and said, "We'll figure this out together. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." His support made the decision clear. 9 months later, Emma arrived, a determined 5 L-6 O's, with Michael's green eyes and a famously loud, newborn cry. Holding her, I vowed she would always know her voice mattered, that her choices would be hers, and that love wouldn't be conditional. Balancing motherhood and a growing company was harder than I expected. I turned a storage room at the office into a nursery and brought Emma in during those early months. My team grew to 25 across 2 offices, and meetings sometimes paused for a baby's cry. Michael adjusted his schedule to share parenting responsibilities. When Emma was 2, he proposed on a quiet Tuesday while we washed dishes together, offering a simple band and saying he just wanted our family to be official. We married in a small ceremony with our closest friends. Elaine was matron of honor. Audrey flew in from Seattle. Emma toddled down the aisle, scattering petals, sometimes eating them. By Emma's 5th birthday, Turner Marketing had 3 offices nationwide and more than 70 employees. We were featured in Business Insider as one of the fastest-growing women-led companies in the country. Buying a small Cessna Citation made business sense for frequent travel, and it was a milestone I never imagined when I left with just a backpack. Throughout that time, I maintained no contact with my parents. I heard occasional updates. My father made partner, my mother remained active in their social circles. I sometimes wondered if they regretted casting me out. I'd almost convinced myself that chapter was closed, until a distant cousin emailed to say my father had emergency heart surgery. The message contained no request, only information. The news unsettled me. My father could have died and I wouldn't have known. One night after putting Emma to bed, I sat on the patio staring at the stars. Michael joined me with 2 glasses of wine and asked what I was thinking. "My father could have died," I said. "I wouldn't have known." He asked if that bothered me. It did, not because I wanted to forgive them now, but because their lives felt incomplete, and maybe there was an unresolved wound I'd been ignoring. I decided on 2 things the next morning: open our next office in my hometown, and after 11 years of silence, face my parents, not for their sake, but for my own peace and for Emma, who deserved to know her grandparents, if they could prove worthy. Emma's questions made the decision sharper. "Mommy, why don't I have grandparents like Zoe?" she asked. One night, Zoe had 4 grandparents who spoiled her with ice cream and zoo trips. I told Emma a partial truth. They lived far away, because explaining the full complexity of estrangement to a 5-year-old felt impossible. Can we visit them sometime? She asked. Maybe, I said. That small hope and the cousin's email set things in motion. While planning the expansion, our head of operations recommended either Denver or returning to my roots in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's analytics looked slightly better. I researched my parents online that evening, something I'd avoided for years. My father's firm showed a professional headshot. He looked older and grayer. My mother still appeared in local charity coverage, impeccably dressed. The house on Street View looked the same. I also found an article about Marcus Wilson, the man my mother had wanted me to marry, reporting his arrest for domestic violence against his wife 5 years earlier. The charges were reduced in a plea deal, but the story confirmed how close I had been to disaster. I told Michael we would open the Pennsylvania office and I would oversee the launch. I wanted Emma to meet her grandparents. He asked if I was sure. I admitted I wasn't ready, but I was doing it for Emma and for the younger version of myself who deserved better. We prepared for the trip without telling my parents. I wanted a surprise. I obsessively checked the itinerary: Emma's outfits, hotel bookings, and the meeting for the office launch. Michael teased my perfectionism. You don't have to impress them, he said. You've built an amazing life. If they can't see that, it's their loss. The night before departure, I explained the visit to Emma. Remember those grandparents you asked about? We're going to visit them tomorrow. Her eyes lit up. Really? Will they have cookies like Grandma Lane? She asked. I wasn't sure. Sometimes grown-ups disagree and need time apart, I began. She saw my hesitation and said, Are you scared to see them? I admitted I was. That's okay, Mommy. I hold your hand when I'm scared, she said, squeezing my fingers. We flew the company jet to the regional airport near my hometown. Seeing the rolling hills and familiar river felt uncanny. Everything looked the same, but I returned as a different person. Michael offered to go with me to meet them first. I declined. This was something I needed to do myself, with Emma as a buffer. At the airport, a sleek black Audi awaited, a far cry from the bus I'd taken when I left. Emma chattered excitedly in her car seat. We checked into the hotel, changed, and drove the 12 minutes to my childhood home. The once necklace lawn appeared neglected. The white trim needed paint. The flower beds were overgrown. Emma peered through the window and said, Is this where you grew up, Mommy? I told her yes. Standing on the familiar path to the front door, I paused, then rang the bell. My father opened the door, thinner than his firm photo, a shocked look on his face. Samantha, he whispered. My mother appeared, frozen, hand to her throat. I told them we had come for a visit, and introduced Emma. This is your granddaughter. My mother seemed to falter. My father picked up Emma's small curiosity and handed her a crystal figurine, explaining it had been my mother's favorite as a child. Small gestures cut through awkwardness. Inside, the house felt like a time capsule. Formal furniture, floral arrangements, family photos, though my graduation portrait was missing. Dust and worn upholstery suggested time had passed. My mother, trained to host, offered drinks. An uneasy silence followed. Then my father reappeared, with a large scrapbook he'd retrieved from upstairs. He placed it on the coffee table, and I opened it to find clippings, printed web articles, and photographs. A visible record of a life that had kept going while I was away. Every public mention of me or my company for the past decade. All of it, my father said as I turned the pages in silence. Your room is exactly as you left it, he added. Margaret wouldn't let anyone touch it. I followed my mother upstairs and paused at the door that still bore the Keep Out sign I'd taped there at 15. When she opened it, I softly gasped. The room was unchanged. The blue comforter rumpled from my last morning, books stacked on the desk, even a half-full glass on the nightstand. It felt like a museum piece, preserved as if to mark the daughter who had disappeared. Why? I asked. She smoothed her skirt, a nervous gesture I'd never seen from her. At first I was so angry I couldn't bear to come in here, she said. Then, when the anger faded, it became a reminder of my greatest failure. The admission hung between us, heavy and unfinished. Downstairs, Emma had my father wrapped around her little finger, flipping through photo albums and pointing at a muddy 5-year-old me. "You were a little like me," she giggled. "Your mother was always headstrong." My father smiled with a warmth I hadn't seen from him in years. While Emma looked at pictures, I asked the questions I'd carried for 11 years. "Why didn't you ever try to contact me?" My parents exchanged looks. "We didn't think you'd want to hear from us after what happened," my father said. Margaret added, haltingly, that she had been in a bad place for a long time after I left. When I mentioned Marcus and the article about his arrest, their reactions were sharp. The news had hit them hard. "When we heard about that, it felt like a physical blow," my mother admitted. "What could have happened to you?" Emma's stomach growled, breaking the heavy air. My father suggested dinner at an Italian place I'd once liked. Then caught himself. "Michael?" my mother asked, realizing I was married. They'd never known. Hesitantly she asked if we might all have dinner the next night. I studied their faces. She looked older, less certain. He seemed diminished but hopeful. "We'll see, I said. "There's something I need to know first. Are you having financial problems?" Their defensiveness was immediate. My father explained his firm had downsized and the partnership track had disappeared. Medical bills after his surgery had been difficult. My mother insisted they were managing, though pride remained in her voice. Before we left, I made an offer. I was opening a branch office in town and would be hiring locally. "Dad, you're good with numbers and client relations," I said. "If you're interested, I could use someone with your experience." It wasn't charity, it was a job and a first step towards something new. That evening, over dinner in the hotel while Emma colored, I told Michael about the scrapbook and the preserved room. "All these years I thought they'd washed their hands of me," I said. He reminded me people are complicated. They can be wrong and still love you. "Forgiveness doesn't have to be immediate," he added. "It can be a process." I looked at Emma and decided that for her sake I wanted to try. The next night we returned for dinner. Michael, Emma, and me. My mother had clearly cooked all day. The dining table was set with childhood favorites. When she offered the china, I gently suggested using everyday dishes. Because of Emma, she agreed, the simple concession signaling a shift. I was no longer the powerless teenager. Conversation stayed polite, while Emma charmed them with kindergarten stories. "She's remarkable," my father said, watching her count to 100. "You've done a wonderful job with her." "We have," I corrected, taking Michael's hand. "We're equal partners." My mother watched us with a hint of wistfulness. After Emma was tucked into the guest room, the four of us sat down for the adult conversation we hadn't wanted her to hear. I laid out clear boundaries. Emma must never be pressured about who to be or what to do. Michael and I make decisions as equals, and the position I offered my father would come with the same expectations as any employees. They agreed. By the end of the evening, my father pulled me aside. "I failed you," he said, voice breaking. "I should have stood up for you. I was a coward." Hearing the apology I'd waited 11 years for lifted something heavy inside me. My mother's apology came later and with more struggle. 3 months after that first dinner, during a tense meal where she made passive-aggressive remarks about Emma, I confronted her directly. "If this relationship is going to work, you need to acknowledge what you did and take responsibility," I told her. She stiffened. Then the defenses fell away. "I was terrified," she said. "I thought I was protecting you. I was so wrong. I'm so sorry." It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, perhaps the first truly candid exchange we'd ever had. The months that followed were gradual. My father settled into his role at Turner Marketing, his skills proving valuable. My mother began helping with Emma when we visited, learning to respect the boundaries Michael and I set. I suggested family therapy and surprisingly, they agreed. The sessions revealed patterns from earlier generations, my mother's strict upbringing and my father's own childhood struggles. Understanding didn't excuse their behavior, but it helped explain it. One year after we reconnected, we celebrated Emma's 6th birthday at a park. deliberately chosen so she could play without worrying about fragile heirlooms. Watching my father awkwardly follow her across the monkey bars, suit pants dusty, felt bittersweet. Michael sat beside me. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "About how different this family is from the one I grew up in," I said. "That bad cycles can be broken." My mother snapped a photo of the five of us. When I didn't smile the way she wanted, she surprised me by saying, "Or don't smile if you don't want to. It's your choice." That small acceptance, her acknowledgement of my autonomy, felt huge. Later, scrolling through the pictures, I paused on a shot that included all of us. It wasn't perfect. Emma mid-motion, my father looking at her instead of the camera, my mother's uncertain smile, Michael and I sharing a private look. But it was honest. My journey from that rainy night 11 years earlier to this imperfect family moment had been paved with hard work and quiet victories. The scars remained, and might never fully fade, but they had shifted into wisdom and resolve. I'd fought for the freedom to make my own choices, and to build a life based on respect, not control. More than the private jet or the thriving company, the real success was giving Emma a life where her voice and choices matter. What would you have done in my place? Tried to reconnect with family who hurt you, or kept that chapter closed? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated, please like and subscribe for more stories of resilience and self-discovery. If you know someone who needs to hear that standing up for themselves is worth it, share this video. Thank you for listening. Remember, your life is yours to define.